Alright, this video is not really going to have a theme to it. I'm just going to try and cover all of the mechanics that I have yet to cover. So this video is going to be kind of all over the place. Let's start with the health bar. As you can see, the health bar is green, and it's separated into 10 equal segments. Every character in this game has 1,000 hit points, which means that each segment correlates to 100 health. Next is the timer, which sits between the two health bars. Right now, I'm in training mode, so it's sitting at infinity. But in a real match, the timer starts at 60, but each second is slightly longer than actual seconds. So a 60-second game will actually last 90 seconds. And when you win a round, the opponent continues to their next character, but you keep your character, and that character regens a little bit of health, depending on how much time is remaining. So if you finish them off quickly, and there's a lot of time remaining on the clock, you will get a lot of health back. Whereas if you win via timeout, you get no health back. I talked about the guard gauge in my previous video, where it goes down as you block attacks and slowly goes back up when you're not blocking attacks. And if it hits 0, I get a full combo on you. But not all guard gauges are created equal. Big burly characters like Daimon have stronger guard gauges, so they can block more attacks than smaller characters like Chin. This game has two types of knockdowns, soft knockdowns and hard knockdowns. When you are hit with a soft knockdown, you can press light punch plus light kick upon landing, and you will automatically do a backward roll and recover more quickly. Characters that are meant to be more aggressive will have hard knockdowns on their normal throws, whereas characters that are meant to be a little bit more defensive will have soft knockdowns on their throws, making it more difficult for them to continue applying pressure after their throw. There is an interesting technique in this game called alternating guard, and it stems from the fact that if you block an attack, you can freely crouch and stand back and forth during the block stun, and your character will switch animations. And when they switch animations, the animation starts over again. So you can infinitely extend your block stun by standing and crouching over and over again. So if Chin does this and he goes into proximity block, he starts sitting in place because he is in block stun. And because he is in block stun, I cannot throw him. This is a very safe position to be, but at the end of the day, he's sometimes crouching and sometimes not crouching. So if you just do repeated lows over and over again, he'll eventually get hit. Charge time in this game is 30 frames, which is half a second. So Leona here has a charge down up plus punch move, which is the moon slash. The minimum amount of charge time is just 30 frames, so I can hold down and then time it really, really early. There's a neat little input trick where you can run by double tapping forward, but then switch to down forward. So now I have a down charge when I'm still running, which means that I can do run, down forward, and then moon slasher while running. And there's another interesting thing that you can do, which looks like this. This is a charge back and then press forward move like a sonic boom, but I can do it while running forward if the opponent jumps over my head. I don't know why you would want to do this, but you can. And the reason that works is because in KOF, you don't have autocorrects. And this makes anti-airing cross-ups very, very easy. So I've set the training dummy to do a throw into a super jump into a cross-up. And if this were Street Fighter, you would have to be like, okay, he's going to cross me up. I need to input my Shoryuken motion right now before he crosses up. So I press to the right, which is the forward, and then you press the down for the down. But then you have to guess at which direction you need to press the down forward. If you're early, you need to input it as down into the right. But if you're late and he's already crossed you up, you need to input it down into the left. But in KOF, you don't need to do any of that. At this point, when he super jumps, I already know it's going to cross up, and it doesn't matter when I press the directions. I can do the same input every time and it'll happen. Like that. So let me do that again in slow motion. Notice when I press the directions. I do the DP backward motion before King crosses me up, and it still works. So the game doesn't correct for left versus right cross-ups until the move comes out. Which means that I will never input something one direction and have it come out the other direction. And this happens all the time in Street Fighter games, and it's really annoying. Where I input a backdash, but then he crosses me up, so I end up forward dashing or even back dashing the other direction. And it's just complete bull honky. But in KOF, you just input it the same way every time, and it works the same way every time. So that's why this thing works. is because while I'm running, I'm holding forward, so I'm getting a right charge. I'm not getting a back charge, I'm getting a right charge. And so then when Chin jumps over me, the game's like, oh, you're on the right side, so you've been charging to the right, which is the correct charge to get this special move. And so I can press left plus punch and get the sonic boom motion. Next is a note about command normals. Normally, Leona's forward B is an overhead that knocks down and you can't cancel out of it. But if you chain into it, it gets different properties. It is no longer an overhead, and it doesn't knock down, and it's special cancelable. And this happens to most command normals in the game. Their properties change, and their use changes. Chin is the main exception. Speaking of Chin, there are 3 characters in the game that can combo in the corner off of their normal throw. Those are Benimaru, Kenso, and Chin. And speaking of command grabs, you can combo into them, but interestingly, you have to cancel into them. If you do it raw, even if the opponent's in hit stun, it won't combo. Like, this is more than enough hit stun to combo into this command grab, but it doesn't work. You have to cancel into the command grab from a normal for it to be a combo. Some attacks, like Maxima's quarterback C, have armor on them, and if you get hit during the armor portion of that attack, it'll effectively block the attack, but then you'll continue with the animation. And there is no limit on the number of hits that you can armor. You can armor as many hits as you want for the entire period that you have armor. And I know it looks like the blocking animation, but you don't take chip damage. Although the opponent can cancel into special moves as if the move was blocked. And not all armor is the same. Maxima's armor only works upper body. If I hit him with a low attack, he can't armor that. Whereas there are other moves with full body armor that can armor low attacks and high attacks. Next, I want you to look at the energy meter at the bottom of the screen. If I use normal attacks, it doesn't go up unless I make contact with my opponent in some way. But I can use special moves and they will build significant meter on whiff. Although notice it doesn't build drive meter, it only builds energy meter. And this excludes projectile moves, which don't build any meter on whiff. They only build meter when they connect. And there's one cool thing I didn't mention about HD in my previous video. I said you can't cancel into HD in the air, but it's still possible to use air HD in combos, and it can be useful. And it uses the fact that you can buffer special motions into your HD. Like that. So I did heavy punch into Shoryuken motion into HD buttons, which gives me an instant Shoryuken after the HD. So you can combine that with the air activation to get new combos. Just a couple more things to talk about. There's some stuff that I need to talk about regarding throws. After getting hit, blocking attacks, waking up from a hard knockdown, or landing from an air reset, you have a brief window of throw invincibility where you can still control your character but cannot be thrown. Although keep in mind that if you do a quick roll after a soft knockdown, you do not get this window. Which means that in the corner, you might consider not using a quick roll, because that gives the opponent better mix-up opportunity. See, if you don't quick roll, I can't throw you on your wake up. So, during this window of extended throw invulnerability, you cannot be thrown, and neither player can attempt a normal throw, including you. Which means that even on wake up, you cannot use a normal throw. Although you can use command throws. And many command throws have no startup. They are active on the first frame, which means that they are effectively invincible. They don't have any actual invincibility built into their animation, but because they have no startup, the throw hits before the opponent can hit you. So even if the opponent times a perfect media, one frame command grab will still beat it. And that's because if a throw and a strike collide on the same frame, the throw wins. And if a throw and a throw collide on the same frame, they both whiff, which looks kind of weird. And finally, I need to talk about projectiles and how they impact the neutral game, although I will be going over the neutral in much greater depth in my next video. Fireballs add a specific dynamic to the neutral game, which is in favor of the one with the projectile. Now, the counter to projectiles is obviously jumping over them at the same time as the opponent throws it, but if you're reacting to the fireball, they're going to be able to anti-air you 100% of the time every time, even if you react with a hop. The same goes when trying to roll through the projectile. So if you want to punish the opponent for throwing projectiles, you have to predict it. And you can predict it with a jump in or an early roll. Now, fireballs are really good, but again, I reiterate, fireballs don't build meter at the same rate as most other special moves. So as you can see, if I just spam fireballs over and over again, my opponent builds like double the meter that I build. So one potential counter to opponents that like to throw fireballs is to just sit there and block and build a ton of meter, and then eventually when they get predictable, do one jump in, and the extra damage that you get from having that much meter is enough to offset all the chip damage that you took from blocking. So the real way to use fireballs is to use the slow fireball and follow it in, because you cannot build an entire strategy around sitting at mid-range and throwing fireballs. It just won't work. So there are two main types of fireballs. There's the slow fireball and the fast fireball, but there's more to it than just one being slow and the other being fast. Unlike in Street Fighter games where literally the only difference between Ryu's Hadokens is the speed at which they travel. In KOF, the slow fireball has really long startup but almost instantaneous recovery, and the fast fireball has really short startup but long recovery. This means that at basically any range around here, throwing a light fireball is going to give you offensive advantage no matter what, assuming the opponent doesn't predict it with jump or roll. If the opponent tries to jump or attack, they'll just get hit. So effectively, throwing a fireball from mid-range and not getting punished is the same as having the opponent block your jump attack. You get to push a mix-up for free. And this is literally free if you're full screen, because there's nothing that they can do to predict your fireball and punish it. It's too far to super jump. So if your opponent has a fireball, literally you should never ever let them get full screen ever, because then they can just throw the slow fireball and get pressure for free. Again, they can react to your roll or your jump over their fireball with an uppercut or something and punish you 100% of the time every time. And yes, all of the characters with good slow fireballs also have invincible anti-airs. Well, this is KOF. You should never be full screen in KOF. You have all these forward moving options that are faster than the opponent's backward moving options. Never, 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 never let a Kenso, King, Athena, Andy get full screen from you. It is not a good time. Let's see. I think that's about everything that I wanted to cover in this video. Oh, wait. PA in the button config is a very important button.